prejudice is something that anybody could really have, any bigoted opinion or notion, but when it's racism, it's institutionalized, and that's something that a Black person can't benefit from, period.
The chief of police in Minneapolis announced that he had fired 4 police officers involved in the arrest and subsequent death of a Black man in police custody. George Floyd repeatedly told the officers that he could not breathe.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, shooters, criminals, rioters.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
It definitely exists. I mean, you can't tell me that the treatment between a white person being arrested and a Black person being arrested is the same.
And a lot of people's arguments with this is that they say white privilege doesn't exist because white people can face like bullying or they can face like that kind of oppression. But really, I mean, there's a really big difference between prejudice and racism, and it's honestly like a life or death situation.
Considering the oppression that Black people have faced for 400 plus years, like no white person has ever had to experience that.
Racism is institutionalized oppression. It's something that is, like you said, literally embedded within our societies in America. It's something that's written within the laws. It's something basically that we as Black people cannot gain any privilege of. I could be mean to a white person. I could call them a cracker, and I could tell them that, you know, they're racist and they're a terrible person. They could get their feelings hurt, but at the end of the day, they can still get a job faster than me and probably not even be qualified for it. They don't get sent home because of their hair or because they're sagging. Just privileges like that.
I think that personally 400 years of oppression is like justified by a little bit of like rioting and looting.
The idea that people have been oppressed for so long, I mean, it's true. And I mean, nobody has listened to people of color for the past 400 years when they say that oppression is there or that their voices aren't being heard. So I think that rioting is justified. Like, how else are you going to listen?
Same thing with the movement. I feel like a lot of people want to blame it on the violence. They want to say, there's this violence, so therefore I can't support it, and therefore I don't have to contribute. Therefore, I don't have to fix the problem present in society. Even though a lot of people I think people know that it's present, they just don't want to do anything about it. Because it takes more work to fix the problem, but a lot of people just want to say it's violence. And that's like one thing that personally disappoints me, because I see a lot of people grouping that. And like with what Anne was saying, there is like a lot of other evidence that shows otherwise, but people just want to ignore that.
I agree that like rioting is like not safe, and it does cause harm to communities, but I do also agree that like this is kind of like what has to happen for us to be heard.
Realistically, if the riots didn't happen, I don't think that America as a whole would pay that much attention to the issue.
For like the white communities or like the nice places that are being looted, like we should also ask ourselves like who was this built for? Like it wasn't really built for us, you know, like people of color. That doesn't completely justify that like we should come like tear it down, but it's like, you know, it's something that we should address. Like who is it built for? It wasn't for us.
Like it blows my mind how people can think that like buildings are more important than lives. Like when you overlook all the people being murdered and then you just focus on that one aspect, it just like, it's so insensitive. And like, I don't know, it bothers me so much because people are choosing to focus on the fact that like buildings that can be rebuilt are being looted versus like innocent Black people are being murdered by the people who are supposed to protect us.
I want to say yes, and let me tell you why. 99% of these cops, whether they are do the harassing, the sexual assaulting, or the brutality, they're enabling it. And, you know, there's a code within these police departments where they don't tell on their partners, they don't tell on the people that they're working with on the force. Automatically you're enabling, you're part of it, you're part of the brutality, you're not saying anything.
Like, the system that is like the police institution perpetuates things like racism, violence, brutality. Like, all of these things are bad, and this is like the system as a whole that perpetuates these things, not a few people in the system. So obviously that leads us to the conclusion that like everyone who is part of the system is part of this like perpetuation that is bad. So
back to like the whole all cops are bastards thing, it's like, yeah, because silence is compliance, you know. If they're not going to be speaking up for it, like on things that are going on, like they're just upholding the system. Like, I don't care if you have like a family member or someone that you know that is a cop and you think, oh well, they're a good person. Well, no, like they're deciding.
If they're not speaking up, yeah, exactly. If they're not speaking up, then they're probably not that good of a person as you think.
Exactly.
You can't be a part of a system that is supposed to protect everybody, but on the drop of the dime, you're not speaking up when you just saw your partner shoot this black kid because he was holding a toy gun, or because this black person wanted to get their license registration and your partner got scared, or your officer colleague got scared, so now you have to protect him because, you know, you guys want to get that raise, you need to get that budget.
You cannot choose your race, but you can choose your career. And I feel like every single time a cop puts on their uniform, they're like choosing to participate in a system that like promotes like systematic like racism and oppression.
A lot of these police departments, right before usually, or right after police brutality, you know, when they end up killing or assaulting somebody unjustly, they end up with a raise. They get a budget raise, and it either happens right before or right after. And I can even cite it. A couple of years ago in Long Beach, LBPD shot a man. I think he was around 19 years old. His name was Tyler Woods, and basically he was shot 36 times. He was unarmed. He took his shirt off, and because he wanted to let them know he was unarmed. And literally the day after that, the cops got, or I think it was, I believe it was the day before, they had gotten like a whole budget for like a helicopter. Like, just things like that. Please literally look this stuff up. Look up, you know, and it's ridiculous, and it's eerie, and it's scary how basically law enforcement gets almost rewarded for things like that. As a Black person, I feel like it's like constantly mentally preparing yourself to try harder, to do better than not even just one person, but a whole group of people, so that way you can just get this much recognition. You know, and it's not even just from that factor. It comes from even more interpersonal factors. Like, you know, there are a lot of people, not even just Black people, there are non-Black people too, that don't like their skin color. They don't like the way their hair pattern is. They would much rather, you know, they feel like they're ashamed of their community. They're ashamed of their own people. They'd much rather be more stimulated to whiteness. And that affects people's mental health. Those experiences all affect your mental health and how you move as an adult.
Doing a little bit of research on this earlier, there was a case study to see how racism affected people's health. And not only physical health effects like cardiovascular disease, low infant birth rate, diabetes, higher blood pressure, there were also 72% of negative mental health outcomes came from self-reported racism, like discrimination at work, educational discrimination, stereotypes, experiences with police. There were a lot of mental illnesses that took tolls because of the racist experiences.
Even in the medical industry, you know, a lot of Black people are not taken seriously. Our health is not taken serious to our health providers. And it hits even close to home. I've had that problem. My grandmother has had that problem. They don't take our health seriously. They find us to be like hypochondriacs, which is basically like somebody that thinks they're like, you know, sick with everything. Somebody that constantly just thinks that they're they're sick or are suffering from an ailment. And, you know, that is what, you know, keeps, you know, our death rates high. That is what, you know, definitely, it never helps, you know, when we go to the doctor saying that we are suffering from, you know, whatever, and the doctor just wants to give us pills instead of actually really just trying to fix the problem. It's a really, really huge problem in the Black community, in the medical history, and I feel like it also really discourages Black people from even wanting to go to the hospital, from wanting to get medical attention or seek medical attention.
Thank you for coming, and we will see you guys at the next discussion. Hey guys, my name is Shailee Sankhala, and I'm the president of Crossroads Initiative. Thank you guys so much for coming out here and listening and participating in our student Black Lives Matter discussion. In the description below, I have linked some resources that we talked about earlier in the discussion, as well as a Teacher Black Lives Matter video that covers the same issue but a different perspective. Thank you guys again so much for coming, and I'll see you guys next time.